Good morning, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, we've got a brand new project to the channel, this 1996 F250 behind me, and it has a couple of issues, the primary one being a really nasty misfire. Can we fix it? Let's get into it. As I mentioned, this is a 1996 F250. It is the light duty, non-super duty F250. As you can see, the body lines are in really good shape. This part of the reason this looks as good as it does is it was a fleet truck. So this belonged to a crane company. And they decided to replace their trucks. So this guy was put out the pasture and they put a good price on it, and I could not resist. It does have issues, such as tailgate. It's not really working right now. It only opens that side, so it needs to be adjusted. The brake lights are lazy, so the brake on-off switch needs to be tweaked. Both fuel tanks work. The fuel tank selector switch works. These mirrors are kind of, I don't know if these are the original mirrors or not, because if they are, it seems very odd, but I don't see it doesn't look like the older style mirrors that have the big support that come down here. So, not sure what's up with that. Overall, the body's in really good shape. And for a work truck, the interior is okay. And the door card's jacked. Crank window does work. It does kind of try to bind on you occasionally. So I probably need to take this card off and get into that. When we look at the interior, the bench looks pretty good. There's a work truck, so vinyl floors. That worked out all right. As you can see, just pretty plain Jane in here. Radio doesn't work. Air conditioning does, but it doesn't have any flow. I think I know what that problem is. We are missing a handle on that door, so you can't open it from the inside. No headliner. That's all right. So another thing I got to address is these doors. Driver's door is not great. If you slam it, it'll close, but even then you wind up with this really bad gap along the top. A lot of wind noise. So let's go ahead, open up the hood, see what we got going on in there. So the hood's secondary latch does not catch, so it's always running around like this. You try to make it do stuff and it won't. So let me get my other hand, get this open. So here we are. Under the hood we have the good old 302, also known as the 5-liter. It is complete. It does run. Got a decent battery over here. Got it charged up. So, some things that are not great that I need to work on. And this still even has a smog pump on it. So, coolant. Take a look. Still green. Like I mentioned, air conditioning does work. Engine oil looks pretty good. I'm sorry about the fuzziness there, but it's not even black yet. So this oil was changed fairly recently. We check the, oh wow, that's a reach. Transmission stick. Looks like a murder scene, and it's full. And then obviously you need to check that when it's running, but you can at least get an indication of where you stand when it's cold. So all in all, I can get this back on. I'll get that back on in a minute. For a truck that's got, I think it's 380,000 miles on it, it's in pretty decent shape. And it does pretty much start with the bump of a key. But it does have problems. Let's see here. Yeah, 326,000 miles on it. Does have some issues, and we'll get into that. So it'll crank right up. Like so. But did you hear that? It's misfiring at idle. Yep, there it went. So it tries to run, and you hear it, it straight up misses. Just whole shebang misses. And it gets much, much worse if you drive it. So, very bad misfire. But the good news is, this is a 1996, which means we get OBD2. We can actually get live data. We can get real error codes versus OBD1. So that's what we're going to do next and take a look at what we can see. All right, so this is going to be a little bit new. Just finally got my microphone out. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to check out what the car's computer wants to tell us with the OBD2 system. Get that plugged in. Let's see here. So we got to get the key, got to get this power on, something like that. Don't have to have it running. All right. See what we get. All right, so it wants to know model. We have a Ford. Okay, so we have 3 codes stored. We have a P1351 ignition diagnostic monitor input. We have a P1120. This is pending, meaning it hasn't thrown the code yet, but it's getting ready to. And that's a throttle position sensor A, out of range, ratch too low. And then this one is stored, it already had it. P0122, throttle, pedal. So we have 2 TPS codes. That's something we need to look at. But the one that is interesting to me is behave. Hate this, the way this thing cycles through codes. There we go. That guy. So I did some research on this guy, and he's a very specific code. Basically, you only get this code if either your engine computer is dying or you have the wrong ignition control module, or your ignition control module is bad. Let's dig into that a little bit. So, what's an ignition control module and what does it do? So, as the name implies, ignition control. So it chit-chats with the computer on cars that have a computer to help regulate and control ignition firing. So it works with things like the coil, and this one they're buried in here, but with the distributor to get the spark where it needs to be. Now, Ford used to, just a quick primer here, they used to be mounted on the distributor, but they kept dying because they were getting too hot. So Ford moved them over here in the corner up on the firewall. Now you notice it's sitting in this ribbed metal thing, right? That's a heat sink. So this part gets hot. It does not need to get hot. So it's got a heat sink with thermal paste to transfer that heat into the fender so it doesn't go bad. Now, here's the kicker. The good old boy I bought this from, he told me it had a misfire. I don't think he knew how bad it was, but he told me. And he said that they had done coil. It's almost never the coil. They had done plugs. They had done distributor cap. They had done everything in the ignition. They'd even replaced this. And they couldn't figure this out. They couldn't figure out this miss. So I did some homework, and it turns out that, you see how this is gray in color? This is the wrong ignition control module. It does not work with a computerized engine. Basically, there is, in its internals, there's a signal wire that's supposed to be communicating with the ECU, engine computer, and this gray one doesn't have it. It may have all the correct connectors up here, but it doesn't do that. The one you need is actually black in color. And let's go look at that. So what you actually need is this. This is a Motorcraft DY-1077 ignition control module. Here's what it looks like when it's not sitting in its little thing. See how it's got that shiny pad? You got to put thermal paste there and then sink it into the metal thing with the fins. But this is the right one. But if you go to your part house and you try to punch this part in and see what it's good for, it won't come up for the truck. It'll say it's the wrong part because their database is wrong. It's been wrong for years and no one has bothered to fix it. So for all those folks out there, if you don't know it's a DY1077, search for a 94 to 95 Mustang 5.0. And the ignition control module that'll give you, even if it's not the Motorcraft one and it's the part house one, is the correct one and it will work. Otherwise, if you're looking at Motorcraft, it's the black Motorcraft, not the gray. The gray is the wrong one. I was able to actually verify this one because my brother, and I've talked about it before on the channel, let's get around this evil RV. He has a 93 F250, and it turns out he had the right module installed. So I was able to swap his in, and lo and behold, the misfires went away. So that's why this thing was misfiring so horribly, and why there actually were no misfire codes, because this was a fairly unique failure. But when I drove this thing home, I couldn't go above 40 miles an hour because it bucked and jerked and it wouldn't shift, and oh my goodness, that was a scary drive. So anyway, let's go ahead and let's change this guy out. He's held in with 2 8mm screws, and then I'll walk you through doing the thermal paste, what you need, how you do it, and getting this thing swapped out. And then we'll fire it off and make sure I'm not talking out my butt and it actually works. Oh no. Hang on, let me rescue you guys. There we go. Okay, that is set to tighten. That is not what we need. So first thing that needs to happen is, see if I can see this connector. Needs to come off. So we can just kind of lift up, push. And that takes care of that. There we go, much better. Then we've got 2 8s. One of them you can readily see up here, and then there's another one down here. Just kind of have to feel for it. Now these should not be crazy tight. And if they are, that probably means somebody got in there and was doing stuff they shouldn't do. But the ICM, which is what this thing's called, it's also called a TFI, I think. They're a common failure, particularly as you get into higher miles on this era of Ford. So it's good to know about. All right, still got to work on it some more. There we go. For example, I know that somebody got into my brother's because it only has one bolt holding it in. So somebody got in there and it died and they replaced it. What's interesting though is the signaling issue only happens on, I think it's like 94, 95, 96, something like that. And his truck is a 93. So I found that really interesting. Let's see if I can get this out the rest of the way by hand. Did some digging, and there are two little bolts here, and I found I have a deep well 7/32. It should be able to get in there and get these off. Yeah, there it goes. These are not tight at all. And you gotta have, well, okay, I lied, that one's a little tight. But you gotta have a deep well 7/32 to get to it. Unfortunately. I mean, I suspect this is a 5.5 millimeter. I do not have a deep well 5.5 millimeter. So, all right, let's see what this does. Okay, so you can see that is thermal paste right there. And then we got some on the bottom of the unit. Let's get these screws out. Make sure I put them somewhere I won't lose them. They are tiny. So I'm actually going to go put these in the cab. That way they cannot run away. So how are you guys liking this USB mic? It's the first time I've used it. I'm hoping that'll eliminate that weird distortion that comes up in the videos sometimes because the phone microphone doesn't pick things up right. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to get some alcohol and some shop towels. We're going to clean this paste off here. And then once this is clean, we'll go ahead and get the new unit, the new module, and the new paste. And we'll slather it down, lock it in. We'll get those two bolts and off your uncle. All right, so just shop towel, isopropyl alcohol. As you can see, it comes up. Now you may be asking why. Well, I want fresh paste. I don't think this paste is that old, but I want fresh paste. And I also want good solid contact. So if there is old paste left in here, that's going to interfere with solid contact. That being said, I'm going to just get out what I can. I don't have the right tooling to get it all out, but I can get it pretty close. There we go. There we go. Kind of get over here. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. It's not going to be perfect. I mean, this is almost 30 years old, so. All right, let's go get the other stuff. Alrighty, so keep saying heat paste, right? Or thermal paste. That's this stuff. Just a silicone paste. This is actually made for computer parts. It's still the same thing. You're using it to transfer heat. It is a good conductor of heat, so it'll transfer it to this heat sink so that it can be passively radiated out into the air and also into that fender. Keep the part cool. So we're just going to slather a bunch of this across here, or if you want, you can put it on the bottom of your part and then screw it in. Now, if you don't have any computer heatsink paste, or you don't want to use it because computers are for nerds. You can, in a pinch, you could use anti-seize. In particular, you could use copper-based anti-seize. Aluminum-based would not be as good. Copper is a better conductor of heat. So either or. I am personally proud of my nerdiness. Make sure we get this lined up right. Yeah, that's going to go to something like that. We should be able to drop this in. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So I am going to apply to the bottom of the part. There we go. Oh wow, this had a paper cap and a foil seal. They really don't want you to, get into it. But, eating thermal paste, sniffing glue, all that good stuff. So we're just going to goop it on here. So normally, if we were doing this like a computer processor, what we would do is we wouldn't mash this out. I think I'll stick with that. So normally this stuff actually spreads really well. I put way too much on it. That's okay. You would make a little ball and then you squish the part down and then it spreads. So you can see it's kind of trying to spread right now. But this isn't throwing as much heat. It is a little bit ruggedized because it's an automotive application. Oh yeah, way too much. Way, way, way too much. That's all right. Excess will wear away. So let me go get those bolts again and drive this in. Kind of show you real quick. Way too much. That's all right. Like I said, I'll get rid of the excess. So let me get this bolted back up. All right, so initially I'm not even gonna put the ratchet on this. I'm just gonna use the socket to kind of get it started, because the ratchet wouldn't do any good anyway. There we go. We'll kind of get it finger tight. And you'll see as you tighten it up, it's going to squeeze more out. And I will, again, kind of get a paper towel or something, try to get this excess off. I did put too much on there, all jokes aside. And if this was a CPU, an actual, the brain of a computer, I would say way too much, clean it all up and then try again. But I think we have more grace and tolerance with automotive. So we want to make these snug, but not kill them, because, I mean, it's like a little metal collar into a plastic part, and we don't want to break stuff. Because even though I got this part from Rock Auto, which knocked the cost down, it still was like a $50 part, even from Rock Auto. But I wound up getting a better deal from them than if I had bought it from a part house. That and the part houses didn't have the right part anyway. And since this is a flip truck, didn't want to. Trying to keep the cost down. I wonder, should I use some some air to get that out? If I use air, that's going to go everywhere. Let me ponder this. Well, after some pondering, I've decided I'm just going to roll with it, and we'll see what it does. Alrighty. Put everything back on. Connectors back on. So why don't we go ahead and crank it and see if we don't hear the misfire anymore, and verify it with our OBD2 reader. Alrighty, here we go. Well, don't hear it so far. If you remember from earlier, the moment I started cranking it, it just had that dead mist where it seemed like everything missed. I don't hear that. They're good signs. As a reminder, this part is not necessarily bad, it is the wrong part. So that goes in the goodie bag for another day. So something else you can do, if you're not real certain on whether you can hear a miss up there, come down to the exhaust. Take a listen here. Because if there's a miss up there, you're going to hear it back here too. And often it can be a little easier to hear because all there is back here is exhaust. You can also stick your hand and feel it. If you feel you can feel the pressure of each cylinder basically parting out exhaust. And if you feel something miss, you know you got a miss, that something's not quite right. When I do this, it's steady. So I think we got our miss fixed, but let's verify by checking the OBD2 reader. All right, so we still have the stored code, which is no bueno, but what I would like to do is clear codes. And then it's gonna query the computer again, see what it can see. And at the moment, nothing. So if we give it some revs, let's see what it does. Let's see. Okay, it didn't sound like it missed, which is good. Can't do that too much. Wife's trying to take a nap. And hell hath no fury like a cranky woman. Alright. Oh, there we go. But we got a pending TPS code. Notice we don't have a misfire code. That's licked. And there's a couple of revs that it wouldn't misfire because when it was misfiring, it was particularly bad when you put it under load. So we got that one licked, but it looks like we still have a TPS problem we got to take care of. However, a TPS issue is not what we're going after in this video. We found a misfire, we diagnosed it, we got the part, and we corrected it. We had an incorrect ICM was causing our major misfire, and I think this is a good repair. So that brings us to the end of this episode. If you found this video interesting, if you found it entertaining, if you found it educational, please consider like, share, and subscribing this video. That does help to grow the channel so I can bring you more content like this. And also leave a comment. I like to read them, I like to reply to them, and I do like to learn from them. And lastly, guys, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. I'll catch you guys next episode.